Accelerated by Compass is the premier accelerator program for Bitcoin mining sites at any stage of development. Our managed services provide expert guidance in site procurement, construction, energy agreements, and mining operations. Compass helps clients meet timelines and expectations for operational excellence, from greenfield to retrofits and everything in between. Don't just mine, excel. Visit compassmining.io now to discover how Accelerated by Compass can power your success.
Are you a retail or institutional investor interested in Bitcoin mining companies? The Miner Mag brings you free data and analysis from all major NASDAQ-listed Bitcoin mining operations to know who stands out. Check out visualized metrics and data-dependent stories at theminermag.com.
Hey, welcome back to the Mining Pod. We have a return guest. Ian from Pow.re is back, aka Checksum. Ian, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad. It's the end of the summer. I'm kind of excited about that. I like summer, but it's time for fall. It's time for some warm drinks and some skiing. So I'm pretty ready for it to be over.
All right.
Yeah, pretty good. But you guys have been busy, so let's get an update from Pow.re because you guys have been doing some stuff down in Paraguay and some expansion there. So let's get a quick update from there, and then today, the main point of the show is just to talk about the new units. I mean, we put an article out through the Mining Pod newsletter talking about the S21, S21 XP, and like the efficiency and power increases and new units. And I just wanted to check in with someone who's deploying a lot of hash rate and get some information about like from coupons to fixing units to efficiency and shipping time. So we'll go through that for the rest of the show. But
Sounds good.
Power.
Sounds good. Yeah, so we've been building a third site in Paraguay. Third site is, so we bought S21, and the third site is going to be filled with S21 over there. Of course, we have issues going on in Paraguay. Always issues in those kind of countries with going from a rate increase to delays and build out and difficulty with the electricity contracts. We are about ready to start, so we did receive a bunch of S21 from Bitmain until we put a hold on the deliveries. And we removed some M30S++ from other sites to put those S21. So we have quite a lot of experience with the newest generation of Bitmain, if we can call that. The S21's getting old now, but it's pretty new still.
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing that we wrote about in the article today was the fact, and by the time this is out, the article is about a week old, but you can definitely go check it out on the blockspace.media website, is the fact that the S21 was announced the end of last year, I believe, and then Bitmain at their Las Vegas WDMS announced a few new units. I believe it was like the Pro and maybe the XP, but definitely the Pro. And these units are between 20 and 30% more powerful. The efficiency is slightly lower. I don't know off the top of my head, but we're moving down towards that 13 joules per terahash. As a miner, like, how do you feel about that? Is it frustrating that you guys like put a purchase order in and 6 months later there's something like a little better, or is there like enough support and efficiency from Bitmain as it is right now that you guys are still pretty happy?
Everything is about the intersection of a bunch of criteria. Mining is an optimization problem, meaning you need to pay a little money for your machine, as little as possible, same for the electricity, and get the most efficient machine that you can get. So when they announced the S21, I was of the opinion that we needed to buy the S21 simply because of the price. So Bitmain was being very, very aggressive on the price at $14 after coupons.
Yeah.
But the S21 Pro and the S21 XP doesn't really fall into that category because they are simply too expensive. Everything that Bitmain named XP in my book was way too expensive to buy. The S21 Pro is not so bad, but the S21 XP is pretty bad, pretty expensive.
Okay, so it's more of a pricing game for you. This is actually interesting that you brought up pricing so early in the conversation, because that's one thing I've heard from a few people, that like the Bitmain units are just so much more price competitive than your MicroBTs. And I haven't heard this in relation to Canaan or anything else out there, but especially in regards to MicroBT. Is that something you've come across and kind of made the purchase decisions for you, or is it more about the other things that Bitmain offers, the support, the volume, etc.?
No, it's mostly pricing to us. So in the beginning, we were looking at the S21. So we were talking with MicroBT and other partners of MicroBT to buy water-cooled containers. At the beginning, so we were looking at the S21, and then we decided to wait for the M60 announcements from MicroBT that they did in Dubai, I think 2 months later. And the price was not competitive. So the reason the price is not competitive from MicroBT is they don't want to sell the M60 to pretty much anyone. They want to sell it to their old M50 contract. So the M60 is pretty much the same machine as the M50, but with 3 times more chips in there. So MicroBT is not getting more chips from Samsung. They're still getting the same amount of chip, but they need to take 3 times more chip to put into a machine that's more efficient to compete with the S21. So in effect, they already had sold everything that they had on the M60 for at least 18 months, I was told. So everything that they were willing to sell was very, very expensive. And they wouldn't even, like in Dubai, they wouldn't even give me a price. So except maybe something between $25 and $28 per terahash, and there's no coupon, so it's the real price. So that doesn't really work when Bitmain is offering you effectively $14 for the same efficiency, the same performance.
Just to clarify, why was the reason MicroBT was doing it? Just because they didn't have the units, and they wanted for the M50 contracts, they wanted to re-up those.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So they didn't have enough unit they have enough unit to sell to their previous M50 contracts. So there's a few public companies that bought a lot of M50s. So they still need to deliver those, and they wanted M60 instead. So those contracts, they've been converted to M60. So those public companies are getting pretty much every M60 that's being produced from MicroBT.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Yeah. Sidebar here, we'll mention Canaan, Auradine, some of these other smaller providers. Have you guys come across those? You guys have test units? Any interest in those? I do want to talk more about the Bitmain stuff, but we got to give a quick moment for these things.
Yeah, we don't have anything from Canaan that's recent. We had A11 that might be still running in some data center. I don't even know. So nothing more recent. I was offered some machine by Canaan, but the price was never really good enough to do a test run with them. We've been burned by Canaan with the 10, 11, and 12 generations. So people say that the 13 and 14 generation is better, but I don't know. I need to have a good price to try it out. Auradine just never happened to come across my desk. I never had any Auradine machine now.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, whenever I go to these mining conferences, or we both do, we definitely see both the sales guys running around for these different contractors. So I was curious. Back to the Bitmain stuff, the S21s. Do you have anything top of dome about how many units you guys have deployed? What's been the process for that? Do you guys have a DOA rate at all that you can share publicly? And then we can get into some the questions that kind of stem from those things.
Yeah, so we deployed 1,700 S21 to date. DOA rate will depend on the batch and the location that the machine been fabricated at. So we have 2 batches that have no DOA, so all the machine worked on delivery. And I'm not sure from which country they are coming, but it's either coming from Malaysia or Singapore. Anyway, I'm not sure, but it's they're not coming from China. So yeah, and the other 2 batches, we had a 2% DOA, and the other one was 5% DOA.
I guess that's around what we see typically is 3 to 5% is what I've heard historically. It's all kind of anecdotal, but was that kind of on expectation for you guys?
Well, historically on the S9, and I'd say the S9 was very, very, very reliable. Yeah. So historically, I received 20,000 S9 during my career, and over those 20,000 S9, there was 2.4% DOA from new units. Wow. So 0% is very good compared to that. 3% is acceptable. 5% starting to be a bit high. Not like S17i, but still quite high, compared to the S19 numbers.
Gotcha. And you might have not looked into this, but the thing I've typically heard is like when you get a higher DOA rate or a lower one, that kind of stands out. It's because it's from a different batch of silicon or it's from a different assembly line somewhere where like it may be one of these Bitmain assembly lines is doing something incorrect. Did you kind of find that to be the case when you guys looked at?
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's not really related to the silicon batch. I don't think so, because date of manufacture on the on the machine, they are quite aligned. So I don't think it's coming from the silicon batch, but it's definitely coming from the assembly line. The assembly line, they had a big issue. So we saw the spike at 5%. And again, I don't remember which country, but we saw a spike at 5%, and then it went down to 3%, which is acceptable to me. It's definitely coming from the assembly line. And the other country we got the machine from, like the two batches are very, like it's the 0% almost.
Yeah, these are the in-depth things of Bitcoin mining that people who have to order thousands of these units have to know about. So, okay, interesting. So for returning these units, have you found anything different? Is Bitmain getting better at it? I mean, historically, some of the S19 stuff from last cycle, there was quite a queue that built up, and then there wasn't as many verified repair shops in North America at the time. But for you guys, what's this process like for sending back those DOAs? Has it been pretty simple?
It's been very simple for us. There's a repair company that's been installed in the capital in Paraguay, and our site are around the capital, so it's very easy for us. We just deliver, like we put them in the truck and we just go drop them. And
nice.
Repair time can be quite long. Like for 10 units, we saw like 2 weeks repair time. Can be quite long, but it's convenient at least.
In the competitive world of Bitcoin mining, one name stands out: CleanSpark, America's Bitcoin miner. At CleanSpark, efficiency isn't just a goal, it's our standard. Our sophisticated facilities are built and led by expert teams who care about Bitcoin and the communities we work in. Scale? We've mastered it. Our large-scale operations have set us apart in the industry as examples of community-oriented building. Our track record speaks for itself. We navigate the complexities of the new economy with precision and with skill, continuously achieving operational milestones. Curious about how we do it? We invite you to discover the story behind CleanSpark's success at cleanspark.com.
This is a really off-the-wall question that most people won't care about, but I'm personally interested. What's the cost per hash board for repair in Paraguay that you're kind of seeing typically? Or do you know off the top of your head?
No, but all the repair we had was under warranty, so I never had to pay anything. So we paid to get a bunch of power supply repaired. Yeah. M30S plus power supply repaired, and like between $50 and $75 per power supply was the cost to repair them.
Yeah, I've never actually thought about it being different in the US versus elsewhere, because the number here in the US I've heard is like always around $100 for a board, and like the cost to repair it is much, much lower, but the charge rate is around $100 depending on who you find.
The labor in Paraguay is very, very cheap. Like base salary from $500 a month to a very good salary for a technician that do repairs like that would be $1,500 a month. So like the labor is very, very cheap, but most of the cost in there is the equipment for the labs. It's the chips. The chips, when you buy them at like units from Bitmain, can be $25 to $50 each. So if you need to change a chip, it's easy. $25. That's going just in the chip part. So it's labor is cheap, but it's not really reducing the repair cost that much.
Yeah, that's a very off-the-wall question. Hopefully we didn't have a bunch of viewers turn off from there because that's such a specific topic for ASIC repair, but it does matter when you're mining Bitcoin. Okay, so let's go through a few more questions when it relates to what you guys are facing in terms of ordering units and keeping units on the shelves. And then I want to turn towards some of the newer Bitmain news that's been kind of leaking out there about some of the new hydro immersion stuff that they're putting out. In terms of like shipping times, S21's delivering on schedule, all those sort of things have been pretty simple. That's what I've heard from other sources, that there's been no hiccups or issues. Is that sort of the case?
Yeah, the S21, they delivered on time or early, as much as 2 weeks early, and then even 1 month early. So what I heard from Bitmain is they want to do like batches of new machine every 6 months. So all the production is now S21 Pro, and then it's about to switch to S21 XP, and then you're going to deliver the S21 XP. And before the S21 Pro, it was only S21. So there's not really any reason for them to be late anymore, because all the assembly line are just pumping the machine, and they are not delivering big batch to only one customer. They are delivering partial batches to everybody. So there's not really any reason for delay. Shipping can be quite hard from Asia right now. Depending where you go, it's shipping by boat or by air. It's becoming very expensive. I was explained the reason by our shipping broker, but I don't remember the reason.
Fair enough. I mean, I feel like there's always a logistics issue somewhere, some canal being blocked by some big boat. In terms of like the unit health, things like that, have you noticed anything that's specific to the S21? Maybe temperatures, just the efficiency of the chips, keeping the chips healthy, things like that have been notable. I think we're in some chats together, and then there's some other chats that kind of have these ideas floating around, but anything specific to the internals of the units that are interesting?
Yeah, the S21 is going to have a hard time with very cold temperature, and that's been an ongoing issue since the S17, so that shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. It's going to have more of an issue with heat than, let's say, the S9 or the S17. I think it's about on par with the S19, maybe a bit lower. So if you can cool your data center with an intake of 35, 36, it should be okay, but you're going to lose quite a lot in efficiency. I guess if your intake temperature is 36 right now, and you're going to have an efficiency around 20 joules of like 17.5 nameplate. So it's quite big loss of efficiency. If you can cool it to 30, it's not so bad. It's 18.5. So anything over 30, it's starting to become an issue. So if you operate in an area that sees higher than 30 Celsius temperature on a daily basis, you should really consider derivative cooling or another type of cooling. Oh yeah, and regarding the board themselves, so you have chips in the corner of the board that like to overheat. That's based on the application of the thermal cooling paste at the factory. It's mostly prevalent on the T21. On the S21, it's not so bad, but we had a few units, I'd say 13 out of 1700s of 0.1%. 0.5%. That overheated in the corner chips, and it's specifically the two corner chips in the on the top and the bottom of the dashboard on the exhaust side.
Well, that's more good information for our thankless warriors fixing units out there to know about. So I appreciate that. Definitely more on the weeds. Let's move over and talk a little bit about some of the new units that are being put out from Bitmain. So we published this yesterday on the Blockspace.media website, and then it's in the MiningPod newsletter, which you can subscribe to by clicking below in the show notes. But basically, we received word at Blockspace that there was a new unit from Bitmain coming out. I'll read the number for it in a second. It's kind of long.
Long name.
U3S21 EXPH. That's right. With 860 terahash at 13 joules per terahash. Efficiency shipping in November, December of 2024, according to some notes. So we went through this, and then we kind of talked about like the larger ASIC market, which I'd be curious. I know you're not a broker necessarily, but you definitely work with a lot of brokers and kind of looking at purchase orders. The thing that we kind of got about this was there's been this treadmill of new units coming from Bitmain. Everything's becoming higher power. more efficient. These Bitcoin miners are facing, historically low hash price. Meanwhile, there's only so many people who can play in this game because they're pubcos or play their cards right and have a deep treasury. First, I'm just curious what your general thoughts are on the ASIC market right now compared to hash price and hash rate being at all-time highs. And then let's talk about this new unit as well after that.
Yeah, so there's a few things going on here. Like you mentioned, the miners are, the industry in general is currently contracting. So there's miners shutting down, a lot of acquisition going on. So people are not into a mind of building new site and, buying new machine. So of course, when you have, Bitmain needs to buy that many amount of silicon wafer from TSMC. And with those chips, they need to produce machines. So like you mentioned, it's the treadmill. You're just going to have to pile machine and wait and try to stop the improvement. But there's a few competitors that try to take the market. Well, you mentioned Auradine. There's other company that's trying to start right now. And there's also Bitdeer that's coming on. Bitdeer is going to be very aggressive and literally attacking Bitmain. Bitmain is the target of Bitdeer. The only reason they are releasing a machine is to hurt Bitmain in general. So they are stuck on a treadmill where they need to get money into the door and they need to produce machine, and they don't want to buy a machine right now. And then there's also a move towards rack-mounted units. It's been big miners, industrial scale miners have been asking manufacturers for rack-mount units for a decade now. And then when you saw Bitmain release a T21 with a 3-phase power supply and a power plug that can take 40 amps, it should have rang a bell in everybody's mind saying, well, there's a very, very big unit that's coming on soon. And that very big unit is that. And even then you can make a unit that could even have about 15 kilowatt instead of 11 kilowatt. So that's not even the largest they could produce. So in my mind, that's the industry is going to move slowly towards big rack mount unit like that. But it's a very complex market right now where you have manufacturers forced to produce and miners that are unable to purchase. So if you play your card right, well, it's a good opportunity for you to acquire a machine at a very small price.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting confluence of things right now where we have all-time low hash price. We have some very well-capitalized pubcos. Most of them are here in the States, but not necessarily here in the US. Some of them are just listed here, and then their operations are global, but most of them have sizable amounts of hash rate deployed in the US. And then you're seeing this movement towards more specialized equipment. So we have this image up if you're watching on CoinDesk TV or on our YouTube channel. And maybe you can describe it to us a little bit, Yin, because it's like this cabinet system, which someone who works in traditional data centers would be familiar with. What they might not be familiar with is the literal megawatts of power being filed into each one of these cabinets. The power density on this is really something. It's pretty wild to look at.
Yeah, the power density is off the chart. Even in the HPC market, it's off the chart. So what you see is pretty much a standard data center telecom cabinet. So it's wider than the standard server cabinet. On the side, you have a very massive power PDU. And each machine consumes more power than what the rack would use into a traditional data center. Of course, usually you have 1U or 2U servers. Usually in data centers, that's 3U. But the amount of power in that rack is off the chart compared to what you see in traditional data center. It's about the same power density than what we've been doing with mining machine, the size of power mining machine that we had before. But instead of being warehouse racks and stuff like that, it's custom made. It's a standard cabinet instead. So it's way more attractive for industrial scale miner.
And I think the important thing here is to note that these things are not cheap and they are different than what most miners are used to, which is like the chicken coop design with an air setup. And it's a little bit more modular, a little more, you can play with it a little bit more. These things are, that's robust. That is quite the system that they got built here. And it's going to cost a lot. I think we had some pricing. I think it was like $27K for one of these units. I'll try to pull that up here when I hand the baton back to you.
I think I was told $30 per terahash before coupons. Yeah,
30.7 before coupon, 21.49 after coupon at that many dollars per terahash, and this has like $860 per 860 terahash. So it's a very expensive unit, and I'm only thinking of a handful of companies who are going to be able to go out and one, buy this, and two, support something like this, because most miners are not ready for this sort of thing. So I guess the question I want to lob to you is like, who do you think is going to buy these things from Bitmain? And how quickly do we think we see adoption of this kind of tech in the field?
Well, there is definitely a market for it. Bitmain usually, when they make a new machine like that, they have a launch customer that already bought most of the production ahead of time. I don't know if that's what's happening right now, but I don't think Bitmain will just go into and design a brand new type of machine. And of course, that's not like we just built a brand new site, and that doesn't fit into our site. So
exactly right.
Bitmain is not talking to us. They are talking to people that are going to build site. They are talking to people that want to do HPC, that want to do in the future maybe GPU, that want to mix mining with AI. So that's the kind of person they are talking to. They are talking to like current AI operators that have rack space available, and that they can just buy units to do mining instead with it. That's the main target, and probably very large companies, like you mentioned, and public companies.
There's going to be a separation in the mining market now where there's people who can only afford air-cooled units with lower efficiency, still high power, but lower efficiency than these cabinet models, and then those who can afford the cabinet models.
Well, mining is it's not a zero-sum game because people make money mining, but in the end, it's all about cost. So if you go with those models and they are not being cost effective, they are not going to stay on the market, because the company that are going to buy that, they are not either they won't buy them again, or they are going to go bankrupt. So they are not going to be able to buy them again. So I think it's very niche, and it's a very targeted customers here, that like people that have like HPC data centers specifically. Beyond that, I don't think we are about to see air-cooled machine go away anytime soon.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think we can close out there unless you have any final thoughts, but I like that as a kicker. We're not going to see air-cooled go away. But yeah, I'll leave it to you for like closing thoughts or anything from Pow.re you want to share before we jump off.
I don't think I have anything.
Cool. Well, Ian, thank you so much for joining the Mining Pod once again. Great to see you. I'm sure we'll get you back on the call here soon. But say hi to everyone in Paraguay and up in Canada for me.
All right. Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you.